Welcome back to Gut Instincts. I'm so glad that you guys are here. Today, I am so excited to share with you an interview that I did with Dahlia Marin. She is part of Married to Health. I've known Dahlia for like maybe 10 years. She is a registered dietitian and she specializes in gut health. So today we're going to be talking everything IBS, and she is so incredibly knowledgeable. I'm very excited to share this with you if you can't tell. So get ready. If you guys have any follow-up questions, please comment them below on the video so that Dahlia and I can get back to you. Hope you enjoy. Dahlia, thank you so much for agreeing to interview with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Let's just start off with a brief introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into nutrition.
So I am a registered dietitian nutritionist. I've been in practice now for 12 years. And I've also in that time become a certified gastrointestinal nutritionist. And really, I always like to say I was my very own first patient and really developed a love for nutrition and dietetics from the needs that I had. Kind of like, I think is similar with your story of how you've developed this passion because of the needs that you had that kind of went unmet. But growing up, I certainly wasn't this picture of health. I was a first generation American, a latchkey kid who the TV and food were my babysitters. And so I quickly went from being an overweight kid to an obese kid to just a teen who really did not have that typical teenage energy that we think of. I was very lethargic. I was very withdrawn. I really struggled to keep up with my peers and just remember not feeling my best. Outside of the fatigue, just had a lot of brain fog, didn't feel great. I remember telling my mom that something was up with my ear, so she took me to the doctor, and in one day I was diagnosed with multiple issues of PCOS, prediabetes, high cholesterol, just so many various things that were going on with my health. And so that led me down the path of just educating myself for myself and then wanting to educate others.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I remember the first time I met you and hearing your story, and it was so impactful for me because I was dealing with some similar stuff and we had a similar kind of background. So yeah, thank you for saying that. I'm just making sure that, okay, good. So these are just some of the questions that I get asked all the time, and I wanted to bring it to the expert. So we'll start with this one. If someone comes to you complaining about gas, bloating, and changes in their bowel movements, what are the tests that you would run?
Yes. So those can be such typical symptoms. And we know 1 in 12 Americans suffers from IBS. I think that that's a higher percentage. I think it's severely underdiagnosed because it's taboo to talk about gas and bloating and bowel movements. But the first thing that I want to know is just kind of the basics. We always start with the foundation. Are you nutrient deficient in anything? When's the last time you had labs run to check a liver function panel, to check how your kidneys are doing, to check your blood sugar? Because all of those things impact how your gut will function. If you have extremely high blood sugar for prolonged periods, that will affect your gut. If your liver is subpar and suboptimal, that will affect your gut. So I like to check basic blood work and then really build from there. If we're saying, okay, all that was normal, we might go to, based on their symptoms, if they're having cumulative gas and bloating throughout the day. They say they wake up with a flat stomach. By the end of the day, they look and feel 6 to 9 months pregnant. I will suggest a breath test. So usually I will suggest a Trio Smart SIBO breath test to rule out small intestinal microbial overgrowth or microbial imbalance. If that is normal, we can continue to build from there and other specialty tests, but really there's so much in those couple things. And then, if there's anything serious going on, like blood in the stool or anything that's very alarming, an endoscopy, a colonoscopy can be warranted as well. But really just those foundational pieces can give so much information.
So good. I love that you talk about the liver health because that's undiagnosed also.
So underdiagnosed.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
What is the biggest misconception about IBS?
I think the biggest misconception is you have to live with it forever and just learn how to manage it. And I just always say IBS is BS, that it's kind of a BS diagnosis, in my opinion. They call it a disease of exclusion, where if they can't diagnose you with anything else like colitis or Crohn's or celiac disease or anything else that's major, they'll kind of just throw their hands up and say, you have irregular gas and bloating, change in bowel movement, you have abdominal pain, you have IBS. So here's some ginger, some peppermint, deal with it. You're going to miss work. You're going to miss out on social life. You'll probably go on restrictive diet after restrictive diet, but just live with it. So I really do find that providers who tell people that of just, this is how you manage your IBS, I just know that there's so much more to that and there are root causes for it. And if you support that, people can live the rest of their lives without symptoms.
So amazing. I think it's so powerful that you have the history of gut issues, because so oftentimes I've noticed that the doctors that say, oh, this is the low FODMAP diet, follow it for the rest of your life, they don't have IBS or they haven't experienced it. So it's a very different experience.
Yes, I call it just health privilege. I find, honestly, so many practitioners have health privilege because becoming a doctor is so rigorous on your health. If you're not in good health, so many will drop out and are unable to become physicians or dietitians or healthcare practitioners. So you do really find that. Is to really, this can be kind of individualized, but really take an honest look at what you're eating and see if there's anything in there that is not jiving well with you, right? I think so many people binge drink on the weekends, or they're consuming things they just really don't tolerate. If that's dairy for people who have milk protein intolerance, if that's gluten for someone who's celiac or non-celiac gluten sensitive, different triggers that people have, I think they're really just so disconnected from their bodies and continuing to eat. So it's not necessarily something to add, but something to pay attention to of, am I consuming something that's just not making me feel great? If you're saying every time I eat X, I'm bloated, gassy, uncomfortable, take a look at that food and it's trying to tell you something, either about how you're digesting it or your bugs are feeling with it.
That's so good. Okay, those are great. Much of my audience struggles with bloating. What's one less known or perhaps surprising thing that could be contributing to this issue, and what's a practical tip to address it?
So I always like to clarify, you can feel bloated and you can look distended. And sometimes people have one over the other. I have a lot of patients who will tell me, I don't feel the pain of the bloat, but I'm super distended and my pants don't fit by the end of the day. So you want to know the difference between the two, because really with bloating, that sensation of bloating, there is inflammation there, or there's a lack of barrier between what's going on inside of your gut and the lumen of your gut and what the nerves right on the inside and the outside of your gut are experiencing, they really shouldn't feel too much of those digestive changes. So if you're feeling very bloated, there's likely inflammation there. And then if you're seeing the distension, there's likely a lot of gas production there. Not to say a little bit of distension is abnormal. When we eat, right, we're eating an entire plate of food, especially if it's fibrous, everyone's going to look a little bit distended, maybe for an hour after, and then it should go down. You should carry on with your day as normal. So if those are exaggerated, if you're saying, I have a morning set of clothes and an evening set of clothes, if it's just extremely painful, doubling me over in pain, making me miss out on life, those are abnormal. You want to really look into what's going on causing those.
So good. Okay. What is your take on the low FODMAP diet for IBS? Is it necessary for everyone with IBS? And what are some common mistakes people make when trying it?
Yes. So we have so much good data on the low FODMAP diet. I'm grateful that it's out there. It's a fantastic tool for so many people. Studies show it works for 50 to 80% of people, which is fantastic, right? That's a high percentage. But then what about the 20 to 50% of people it doesn't work for? I think the low FODMAP diet, which stands for low fermentable carbohydrates, basically. It stands for fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols, basically different sizes of carbohydrate chains that will be fermented naturally by our gut bugs. But if anything is off with motility, if anything is off with the balance of the bugs, even the barrier, you might be fermenting in the wrong place. And that's where people get that upper distension with FODMAP. So I think it can be a really helpful tool for many people, and it can provide relief and information. But it's not a cure for IBS. 2, it's not a long-term solution. And I see that so many people use it as a long-term solution. I have people come to me saying, I've been low FODMAP for 5 years, and now I'm even more than low FODMAP to where I only eat 5 foods. And it's only meant to be followed for 4 to 6 weeks at a time while you're investigating why you feel better off of the FODMAPs. And then the goal is to reintroduce each group of FODMAPs at a time, so that way you can understand if all of them are bothering you, if it's just one type of FODMAP, and then hopefully there's a solution out there for it, like a digestive enzyme that can help you eat them anyways. So I hope more people understand that. It's informational. It is not a way of life.
That's so great, because I was definitely one of those people that it's almost like once I started following it, there were less foods I could tolerate on it.
Yeah.
My body became more and more sensitive, and yeah, it's not good. Just stay on it long term.
And studies do show if you're following it for longer than 6 to 8 weeks, it is diminishing bifidobacteria, which is one of the keystone most important species in your colon. It heavily regulates colon motility, decreases inflammation, helps you produce postbiotics or short-chain fatty acids. So it's short-term gain for long-term damage for a lot of people, where in the interim, sure, you have fewer symptoms, but in the long term, you suffer because now you're down to a handful of foods, or now you are having increasing food fear, or a loss of that sense of control that these diets can give initially.
Yes, absolutely. Probiotics are often touted for gut health. What's your advice on choosing the right probiotic for IBS? And are there certain strains people with IBS should look for or avoid?
That's a great question, because probiotics are a billion-dollar industry, right? And I think a lot of them can be extremely helpful for the right person. It's so unique and so individualized. We do know for SIBO, right? If somebody does have small intestinal bacterial or microbial overabundance or overgrowth, it's kind of like adding fuel to a fire. If you're taking a probiotic, we really shouldn't be trying to add more bacteria when you already have overabundance of certain types. So really you want to rule out any of those underlying causes. Same with people with histamine issues. If somebody has histamine intolerance, some of these very supportive anti-inflammatory strains, Lactobacillus acidophilus, for example, it's a histamine releaser. So it might make that person with histamine intolerance or mast cell activation feel so much worse. And then there was a really good study that came out in 2019 that took 3 groups of people. And before they gave them antibiotics, they took a fecal sample from all 3 people. And so they gave all 3 groups antibiotics. And then with one group, they left them as is and they didn't do anything afterwards. Another group, they gave them their own fecal microbiome transplant that was their pre-antibiotics. The third group, they gave antibiotics. And they actually found that the group that recovered their own natural microbiome, the slowest was the antibiotic or the probiotic group rather. So probiotics, because oftentimes you're taking 50 billion, 100 billion, 20 billion of 3 strains, 5 strains, we don't realize that that's kind of micromanaging things. We have literally thousands of strains in our gut. So it's early on. I use them often for patients when the context is appropriate. We do know certain strains are helpful for constipation. Lactobacillus reuteri, for example, extremely helpful for constipation. We do know certain bacillus strains are helpful for fungal overgrowth. Or we do know Saccharomyces boulardii is really helpful for diarrhea. So I think there's use for it. One tool that I like to recommend is a US probiotic guide. And that can help you kind of decipher, okay, if I have celiac, what's an appropriate strain for me? If I have IBD, I have constipation. So that's a great tool that I like to share with people.
And what was that one called?
US Probiotic Guide.
US Probiotic. Okay. Going to be Googling that immediately.
A great one.
Amazing. Thank you for that. What are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about IBS, and what would you want them to know?
So I would say biggest misconceptions are, again, it's a lifelong sentence. I think also that they did something to cause it. I have so many people who feel this guilt of, I shouldn't have taken that one round of antibiotics. And I think they don't realize IBS is more of a cumulative type of condition or type of disease. And it's often not just one thing. It can be, especially in cases of post-infectious IBS. Maybe somebody had a fantastic gut health. They picked up a gut bug while traveling, or they got food poisoning, and then their gut changed. I've seen those cases for certain. If you could anticipate that, you would have. So it's not that you did anything wrong. But I also see so many people with regret of saying, well, if I had just been less stressed, if I just hadn't taken the antibiotic, if I had just eaten healthier, and it's, if you knew, you would have done it. You didn't, and that's okay. So it's just learning and growing through it and really understanding how that IBS came to be. And for some people, it's in utero, right? Maybe mom took antibiotics in utero and that kind of put them on a specific trajectory, but it's never something that can't be helped. And it's never something that you can't at least alleviate significantly, even if somebody's underlying root of their IBS is a chronic condition. Maybe somebody is wheelchair bound, or maybe somebody has an autoimmune condition. It's not something that can't be managed and supported.
So good. What is your perspective on the role of food sensitivities and intolerances in IBS? How can someone differentiate between a true allergy, a sensitivity, and IBS symptoms?
Yeah, I love that question. And, I think when we met several years ago, food sensitivity tests were so hot and everyone was sending in their everything, their saliva, their hair, their blood, and they wanted to know what they were sensitive to. And at that time, we thought that that was a great way to help people understand that. And our understanding, when you're performing those IgG food sensitivity tests, it's really just telling you that you have leaky gut. It's not necessarily telling you what foods you're sensitive to, because when you're testing something in somebody's blood, food does not belong there. So if you're picking up banana antigen or avocado or wheat, which often are the things people are eating the most, and they're always like, oh, this is what I eat the most. I'm heartbroken that I'm sensitive to it. You're not. You just have leaky gut. So when you're performing those IgG tests, it's important to know that. It's not diagnosing anything that caused this. It's just you have leaky gut. And then with food allergies, that is an IgE test. So we're looking for IgE antibodies. And IgE is more abundant in the system. We have IgE in our throat, in our mouth. We have it in our lungs, in our gut, because IgE is more of an immediate response. That's why when you have a true food allergy, immediately your body reacts, right? Some people more severely than others, where their body straight up is like, nope, I'm going to close off the entrance. I'm going to have you vomit to reject this food or give you diarrhea immediately to get rid of it. So with an allergy, it's more of an immediate response, but can be diagnosed either through a blood test or a skin prick test, which will help you identify exactly what foods or even environmental allergens one has. With an intolerance, it's more subtle. So when we're talking about true intolerance, we're looking at IgA, which is in our mucous membranes, and we have mucus lining our entire gut. So it is a little bit more subtle. You can experience discomfort with intolerances, but it can be anywhere from 24 to 72 hours after you consumed something or were exposed to it. So that's where food journaling can be helpful. maybe a temporary short-term elimination diet with reintroduction. So that way you're really understanding, okay, is it immediate? Is it subtle? How severe is it? Can I diagnose it on a piece of paper, or is this something that I need to kind of pay a little bit more attention to?
I love that. And I love that you talk about the food sensitivity, because I've done that, the food sensitivities before, because of the leaky gut, and it was like everything I was eating, so I had to eat. It was, oh my gosh, and then just the foods I could eat got smaller. But you're right, it was always the foods I was eating every day that were causing the issues.
So no wonder they showed up.
No wonder. That makes so much sense.
So if you're out there and you're going to invest in a food sensitivity test, save your $200 and look into something that's actually going to give you better information.
Yeah, that's so good. Are there any emerging research or treatments for IBS that you're excited about?
Yes, I think in the stool testing space, we are just aggregating so much more data, and the science and technology is getting so much better for stool testing. So I'm really excited just to see how far it's come in the last 5 years, and then where it's going to be in the next 5 to 10 years, especially now with AI. I'm excited and I'm apprehensive. I've had meetings with some of these companies, and it's like, you're a Silicon Valley dude who knows how to use AI. You know nothing about the gut microbiome. You're selling this $500 test, and you are not properly helping people. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but really, just want to see what is out there for consumers. And then fecal microbiome transplants are becoming more and more validated. We know the FDA recognizes them for certain conditions like C. diff or certain other conditions where we can use fecal microbiome transplants. I think that list is going to expand as the years come, and we're identifying that literally inoculating somebody with somebody else's stool that is healthy into an unhealthy gut microbiome can be helpful, whether it's rectally or through what we call crapsules, and it's literally a stool capsule. I'm excited for it.
I have heard things about this for a while, and it definitely freaks me out, but I'm also like, if it fixed IBS for that person, like, desperate times,
They are really strict. We had a friend who was submitting his stool to a stool bank, and you literally have to be drug tested. You have to be blood tested. You can't have taken antibiotics for 5 to 10 years. You have to be healthy with a healthy BMI and exercise and a great diet. So they're not just taking anyone's poop. We're getting legit donors here.
I didn't even think about like a stool donor. Wow, that is so crazy.
He had like a legit side gig going on, just making his.
I would not be that person. I would not qualify whatsoever.
One day.
Yeah, someday. What are some resources, books, websites, apps that you recommend for people who want to learn more about IBS and manage their symptoms?
Ooh, that's such a good question. There's so much great data and so many great providers, researchers out there. I think, whether it's from Cedars is always publishing such great data on SIBO with Dr. Pimentel and his team. I think Dr. B, the Gut Health MD, is a great resource. We try to be a great resource at Married to Health. You have the Sonnenbergs. There's great research coming out of Stanford on IBS. There's a really great book that I love called Gut. And I cannot remember the author right now, but that was just such a good read, and it's easy for just a non-healthcare practitioner to really get the gut itself. But there are so many good resources out there. And then we're learning more, and there are more cookbooks on fermented foods and antioxidants. And I just think that the space is growing so much where whether you are on temporary low FODMAP or low histamine, low sulfur, low fermentation diet, there are great resources that are out there.
So good. And just to end, can you just tell everybody how they could possibly work with you and just a little bit about Married to Health?
Yeah, so at Married to Health, we have 9 dietitians total. I'm still one of the practicing dietitians, and I really spend my days talking all about SIBO, IBS, anything that has to do with the gut. So I do offer one-on-one consults for those who really want my eyes on their labs, their scopes, their symptoms, their dietary records, all of it. So I do offer one-on-one. We do have a SIBO IBS program for people to go at their pace. It's our Good Gut SIBO IBS program. So anybody can sign up for that and really if you want to either get a SIBO test and become diagnosed with SIBO, if you want to work on your SIBO, if you want to work on your fungal overgrowth, it's a self-paced program, and we have about 10 experts who participated in the program: gastroenterologists, personal trainers, emotional release. We just have pelvic floor therapists. So many people are passionate about all the parts that can be involved with IBS. We do have free resources as well, like our blogs and our social media. And then we have things like Gut Nurture, which is our supplement that we got to formulate with Complement. So
yes, I would love
interested
to hear about it.
Yes. So Gut Nurture came from just my desire of something my patients didn't have. It was kind of this, let me put different things together that I'm recommending anyways, that have therapeutic benefits and really good data behind them. And just I see clinically from working with thousands of people that work. So we put in here a good prebiotic fiber. We put sun fiber, which is partially hydrolyzed guar gum. There's a therapeutic dose of ginger. So it does taste gingery. That's the biggest complaint and biggest comment that we get, that people love it. So if you're not a ginger lover, you might not love this. But there's a therapeutic dose of ginger in here. And then we have antioxidants and polyphenols to help decrease gut inflammation. So whether that's, we put in a little bit of licorice root, I put in horse chestnut. I did put in also a little bit of molybdenum, because for those who suffer with that sulfury gas, right? We all know it's that hot, stinky, rotten egg smelling gas and stool. Molybdenum can be so helpful because it helps break down sulfur. So I put things in here, whether it's somebody who has pre-existing GI issues and they want to alleviate some of it. I put this in there for somebody who wants to keep their gut healthy. And it really is just a way to nurture your gut every single day along with your food. It's really a complement to what you're already doing. And it doesn't have probiotics in here. We just focused on prebiotics to nourish the bugs. There is a postbiotic in here as well to just help the environment. But Gut Nurture is meant for whoever wants to have our hashtag good gut, right? We're always trying to help people heal with each meal.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So do you add it to water?
You can add it to water or food. So I like to drink it as a tea.
Okay.
I always on travel, I bring it with me. I'll drink it as a daily tea, but I've made peanut sauce with it. Anything that really calls for ginger, I have made this with. So you certainly can cook with it because there's no probiotics in it. So you're not denaturing the probiotics by heating it up. So you could put it in your food, you can put it in your beverages and enjoy it as a nice daily gut soother.
Oh my gosh, I love
So
that.
yeah, I'm going to give you that
Yay.
try.
I'm so excited.
And the bag's compostable. So just good for your gut, good for the earth, good all around.
I love all the ingredients you were talking about because I've been doing the guar fiber. I'm probably pronouncing that weird.
Yeah.
But I love that. That has totally changed things for me in terms of consistency. And then I've been reading a lot about the power of ginger, how much that can really help with bowel movements. So
And upper GI motility, nausea. I've had so many people say when I had COVID and I was so nauseous, this was the one thing that got me through that. So we really just had that in mind of how can we help people balance and soothe. There's also B vitamins in there, B1, B5, B6, because they help with motility. So it's just, helping calm the bugs, calm the gut, and feel really good. Nurture.
So great. Dahlia, thank you so much for sitting down with me and just for sharing all of your amazing information. And thank you.
Thank you for just educating those who really are looking for credible resources and help, and those who can get them to the end of that road. It's possible.